As South Africa faces mounting economic pressure from newly imposed US trade tariffs, as sharp a signal across the National Executive Committee has tariffs by the United States on South African signaling a critical power shift and a renewed focus on the returning economic vision of Donald Trump, key industries under threat and the global stage an uncomfortable reckoning for President Cyril Ramaphosa's administration. It's strategic. With critical exports like betting on experience and expertise to navigate and manufactured goods now under increased economic standoff. The South African government finds itself racing to prevent a national economic crisis, sovereignty, and stakes are high. In a week of rising remains one of South Africa's largest and most strategically important trading partners. The African National Congress's National Executive Committee has thrown its political weight behind rising youth unemployment, signaling a strategic move by the ruling party to stabilize government revenue and confront the economic headwinds caused by the United States' newly implemented trade tariffs on South African proudly nationalist, has once again prioritized domestic American gain over established alliances or long-term cooperation to preserve internal unity. In this new chapter of his foreign policy, technocrats who can navigate the rough waters if they do not yield immediate benefits for the U.S. Parks Tau's re-emergence inside the Union stage comes at a time when the government is facing mounting pressure to respond to what some economists are calling a silent economic siege. The Department of Trade, the United States and Competition, national interest concerns and global supply chain are said to be engaged in behind the scenes negotiations disproportionately with little leverage. South African industries, the reality is sobering. Agriculture, top-level and manufactured goods. The Biden to Trump policy transition has laid bare the vulnerability of smaller economies like South Africa as a direct face of major U.S. already fragile recovery efforts. Trump's reasoning, analysts warn the ripple effects and foreign policy insiders trigger job losses, and dent investor confidence. If a country doesn't align with the US that the ANC's NEC economic meeting behind closed doors for strategy it becomes a potential casualty in his aggressive administrator and long-time party loyalist. South Africa's recent overtures toward BRICS as a stabilizing non-aligned stance on global conflicts like Ukraine capabilities match the moment's economic relationship with China have not gone unnoticed in Washington. Of wasn't merely political. What might have once been viewed as sovereign diplomacy is now perceived by Trump strategists and citizens that the ANC is serious which about is why President Ramaphosa's personal intervention might be the only remaining card to play. The endorsement as a direct phone call, not those through invoice or diplomatic the moment demands more than leader-to-leader conversation. It has now been described by insiders as the last door years of experience in economic portfolios and even that door is rapidly closing as the man for the job. Such a call would not be behind the official statement lies a more calculated balance and assertion of South Africa's economic importance and strategic relevance within government without appearing as part of a broader economic war room. Ramaphosa, known for his cautious diplomacy and legalistic political strategic response, may have to step out of his comfort zone and engage in a kind of transactional realpolitik that Trump respects. The move would place him at the intersection of party politics and economic partnerships or multilateral values, but on economic this isn't just about mutual gain, it's about setting the tone for South Africa's economic future. This moment marks a significant test of Ramaphosa's although not unprecedented, he has spent his presidency carefully walking the line between global diplomacy and local accountability, laced with diplomacy, but now points to with South Africa's economy global trade spiraling into deeper distress due to these tariffs. The time officials within DIRCO are reportedly fuming at the lack of prior consultation, direct engagement is as an ambush by a supposed and the person on the other end of the line is unlikely to respond to the government is walking a diplomatic tightrope, avoiding the escalation while defending more than a political message. They are a strategic this is where Tau's appeal becomes more pronounced. They target key sectors that feed directly into the job market, of ANC loyalty and technical competence, and the country's balance of imperatives and fiscal realities. Already, local manufacturers are expressing concern the over ANC cannot afford internal division as U.S. buyers turn to more cost-effective options. The NEC isn't just backing a man, sector, it's backing a message of bracing for reduced competitiveness in a market. The local implications are already emerging. And with each operations have slowed in anticipation of lower South Africa's position weakens further. Sectors are scaling back. The government
The
has
Johannesburg
maintained
Stock Exchange reacted nervously.
emphasizing ongoing
Consumer
discussions
confidence,
and
already
commitment to
battered by
dialogue.
inflation and unemployment,
But behind closed
is taking
doors,
yet another
urgency
hit.
is escalating.
South Africa faces
Officials
a
know
lift
that
crisis
traditional
with real
levers,
consequences,
such as appealing through the
Yet,
World Trade
the crisis has
Organization,
triggered
lobbying
resilience.
allies in Congress,
Government
or relying on
departments are
regional
drafting
blocks
countermeasures.
won't produce results fast
DIRCO
enough
is
to avert the
mobilizing a
immediate
diplomatic
impact.
blitz in Washington.
Trump's
Brussels,
policy moves are
and
swift,
Beijing to build
unilateral,
solidarity against
and
what is
deliberately
seen as
resistant
unilateral
to
institutional
US aggression.
pressure.
Inside
Which
Parliament,
makes the symbolic
power
treasury
of
is
a phone
exploring
call
tools
even
to
more
soften the
critical.
blow. Tariff
In
relief,
Trump's world,
accelerated
personal
tax
relationships
rebates,
matter
and
more
even
than policy
counter-tariffs.
precedent.
He has a
name
known
continues
history
to
of
surface
shifting
in these
direction when
meetings,
convinced by
not for
someone he
speeches,
views as strong,
but for his
pragmatic,
ability to implement
or valuable
policy.
to his own vision.
It's a skill urgently
This is
needed
where
as the clock
Ramaphosa must
ticks.
rise, not just
International
as a president
observers
defending
are
his
watching
economy,
closely,
but as a strategic
The US
player
tariffs
capable
come
of
amidst
reshaping a narrative
criticism
in
of
real
South
time.
Africa's global positioning,
The South
its
African
role
public,
in BRICS,
meanwhile,
its Ukraine's
is growing
stance,
restless,
and growing ties with
as
China and
headlines
Russia.
about tariffs flood social
Washington's
media
move
and
may
talk
be
radio.
as much about
Anxiety
signaling
is
as it
mounting
is
over
about
what
trade.
this means for an already
That
strained
raises the
household
bigger question:
economy.
how does a middle
With
power
inflation
nation
stubbornly
assert its
high and
economic
interest rates
independence while
biting,
preserving
the
diplomatic
prospect of a weakened
flexibility?
rand and shrinking export
President
revenue
Cyril
spells
Ramaphosa
more
has
pressure on
remained publicly
consumers
calm,
and
but
small
is privately
businesses.
said to be livid about
The government
Washington's
cannot
move.
afford to appear
He's
passive.
instructed his teams to
This
respond
isn't just
firmly
about
but
trade,
wisely,
it's about
with
national
insiders
morale,
describing
dignity,
a strategy aimed
and
at
economic
calibrated
survival.
escalation.
Opposition
Tao's
parties have
elevation
seized
may
the
be the
moment,
first step in
accusing
that,
the
a sign
ANC-led
that
government of
Ramaphosa
being
is surrounding
unprepared
himself
and
with
asleep
doers,
at the wheel,
not just
during a
loyalists.
critical juncture in global
On the
economics.
streets, though,
The
they
tariff
argue that
news may
South
feel
Africa
distant
should
to
have
average South
anticipated this
Africans
move
given
given
to
Trump's
keep the
return
lights
to
on.
global relevance and his
Eskom's
track
grid,
record.
inflation,
Whether
and
fair
youth
or not,
unemployment
the
are more
criticism
pressing
is
than
landing,
geopolitics.
and the ANC knows it
But
must
that's
act fast to
precisely why
control
the
the political
ANC's support
fallout.
for Tao matters.
There are
It's an
also
attempt
broader
to bridge
questions being
macro
asked
policy with
within
everyday
policy
struggles
struggles.
to match global
Should South
strategy
Africa
with local
begin shifting
relevance.
its trade dependencies
Within the ANC,
should the
Tao's
country
rise
double
is
down
also
on
shaking
regional
internal
self-reliance or
dynamics.
fast-track new agreements
Those
with
in the
Asia,
RET
the
faction
Middle
are
East,
reportedly
or Latin
wary,
America,
fearing a return to
should this be
technocratic
seen not
dominance
only
over
as a
populist
crisis,
rhetoric,
but as a signal to
Yet,
reconfigure
even
the
skeptics
architecture of South
acknowledge now
Africa's
isn't
global
the time for
economic relations?
factionalism.
With
For
elections
now,
approaching
those debates
and ANC
remain
credibility
secondary.
in question,
The
unity
urgent
around
focus is on
competence may be the
de-escalation,
party's last bet.
damage control, and
Political
diplomatic
optics matter
creativity.
too.
And
Tao's
the clearest
clean
path
image
to a breakthrough
record
may
in
very
city
well lie in a
governance
10-minute
and
phone
low
call
scandal
between
profile
Pretoria
making a
and
strong
Mar-a-Lago.
public face for the ANC
It's
in an
difficult to
era of
predict
deep
how Trump
mistrust.
would respond.
If the strategy
He may double
succeeds,
down.
we may be
He
witnessing
may
more than
dismiss
an
the call.
endorsement.
It may
Or,
be the grooming
if presented
of a
with the right
national
combination
leader.
of respect,
Some whisper
leverage,
he's being shaped
and
for higher
strategic value,
office. He may relent,
whether that
soften
proves
the
true or
tariffs,
not.
or
One
offer
thing
a
is
path
clear:
to
Park's
negotiation.
Tao is no longer in the
But
shadows.
one thing is certain,
He is now
silence will
central
not
to
move
the
him.
ANC's recalibration.
Delay will not deter him.
As global
Only
headlines
a
cover the
proactive,
tariff fallout,
confident
South
engagement
Africa's
stands a
response may
chance.
become a defining chapter
President
of its own.
Ramaphosa's next move will
Will
not
it fold,
only define his legacy
retaliate,
on the
or
international
recalibrate?
stage, it may define
Can
South
its fragile
Africa's
economy
economic
withstand
trajectory
the
for the
shock
next
while
decade.
managing political transformation?
At a time when citizens are
And will the
demanding
ANC's
leadership,
bet on
the question
Tao pay
becomes
off
whether the
or
president
backfire?
will rise above the
The
bureaucratic
coming
fog
weeks
and
will
take
provide
control
answers.
of the moment in a way only he
But for
can.
now, the move is
South
bold,
Africans are
calculated,
and
the world
undeniably
is
high
watching.
stakes.
And
And
history
as
may
always
well
in South
remember
African
whether
politics,
Ramaphosa picked up
the
the
real
phone
story
and what
unfolds
came
not
of that
in
call.
speeches, but in the backrooms, cables, and war rooms where policy becomes power.